Hi, and welcome back. And thank you for joining us today for week 4 of our ongoing 15-week series of tools to support your life journey. And these tools can be found in Jane's book, Spiritual Power Tools Support for Your Soul. This series will empower you to become your infinite self. So let's just take a few minutes to pray the prescription for spiritual alignment. Just please sit back and relax and just become comfortable. We are aligned with the presence of God within. We are protected by God's love, wisdom, knowledge, and grace. The God consciousness within helps us discover more about who we are. Thank you, God, for the gift of spiritual intuition. Thank you, God, for aligning our conscious, subconscious, and superconscious minds. Amen. Well, during today's lesson, Jane will be guiding and directing us to those things stored in our subconscious that get us stuck in negative patterns. Let's watch and listen.
So hi, we're back again, and we're working on the Spiritual Power Tool book because it's the 10th anniversary of the publication of this book. And I wanted to give you a history of how I put these tools together and how they help me. And these tools were put together at different times during the last probably beginning of my journey for about 20 years. Now I've been on this journey for 45, but the first 20 years these tools were used practically all the time by me and still are. But they have helped me, and I wanted to help you to understand more about the spiritual tools and why it was a desire of my heart to put this together 10 years ago. So with that thought in mind, I'd like to kind of talk to you about what we talked about last week, which was the effects of meditation. And I gave you a list of different things that you might experience, and some people experience it and some people don't, and it's pick and choose, whatever works for you and how that can help you. Hope I've covered the area that you most need support in. So now I'm going to go on to another part of my journey. After I had learned to meditate and still my mind, one day in my meditations, I had my eyes closed and I was just pretty quiet within. I had taken care of my very busy mind by putting it on a shelf and not paying any attention to it, and turning off the recorder, which was my mind that recorded all the things that I was thinking about. So now I have it turned off and in the corner of my brain somewhere, and I'm kind of quiet and still. And this happened way in the early 60s. Probably, I would say probably 68, 69. So the tool I'm going to tell you about was one of the very first tools I uncovered as I learned to meditate and still my mind. I had a vision, and I saw an iceberg. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I wonder why I'm seeing an iceberg in my vision. And it brought me out of my meditation because I started questioning it. I started to say, what's this about? Why am I seeing this? This doesn't make any sense to me. And I finally shut that part of my brain off and said, shh, Jane, be quiet. Shh, and go back to your meditation. So I went back to my meditation, and then suddenly it was a voice within me said, you are 1/10 conscious and 9/10 subconscious, like an iceberg. Whoa, I said. Okay, now this iceberg makes sense to me. As I can see this iceberg, 1/10 of it is above the water and 9/10 of it is under the ocean. And so I need to understand more about that. What do you mean I'm 1/10 conscious? I'm sitting here, I'm meditating. I don't understand what on earth it means to be 1/10 conscious and 9/10 underneath the water line. And it came to me very clearly, that is your subconscious. So all of a sudden I realized that my subconscious was a part of me, but I was only 1/10 conscious of myself in body. So that meant that 9/10 of me was somewhere in outer space. It belonged to me, but I had no access to it. So that was another puzzle to me. And I kind of wrote and journaled about that and put it on a piece of paper and said I'm 1/10 conscious and 9/10 subconscious. And there seems to be a veil between the conscious and the subconscious. And that keeps me only 1/10 conscious. How do I tap into what's underneath the veil? And is it important that I do so? These are all little questions that I asked in 1968. I need to understand more about this process. I had a little piece of something I knew not what to do with. So as I continued my meditation, I began to experience more of the subconscious and what was in the subconscious. And that veil between my conscious mind, my subconscious mind was being lifted. And that I would have more access to my subconscious than I ever had in any other lifetime. Because otherwise, my subconscious was buried, and I was 1/10 conscious, and I had a life plan, and I went ahead and did that life plan. Died and came back into another life plan, accruing all these things in my subconscious. And then the question I had to ask is, what good is it for me to see what's in the subconscious? What kind of difference is that going to make to me personally? I didn't understand it. I was just a little spiritual student trying to understand just how to meditate. And now I got this big piece of information, and the only thing I knew to do with that piece of information was to continue meditating and hoping that I was going to tap into something more, which absolutely did. I began to tap into my subconscious. And what my subconscious was telling me is that I had other lifetimes that I had lived, and this wasn't my first lifetime. And that all the things that I've ever done in any of my other lifetimes were stored in my subconscious. So that was a peculiar thing to try and understand. And so I continued meditating, and different things happened to me that suddenly I became conscious of another past life that I had lived. My veil had been lifted, and the information from that past life was coming to my conscious mind. And when that information came to me, I realized some of the things that I was doing as Jane in this lifetime were created by desires that I had in another lifetime with another name and a different I. That blew my mind. And maybe I'm blowing your mind right now, but I'll tell you, my mind was blown. How can that possibly be true? How can there be another I besides the I am right now? Is this the only I I'm ever going to have? I thought. And if I've had other I's, how many other I's have I had? How many other lifetimes have I lived? And what good is it for me to know about those other lifetimes in this incarnation I'm in right now? These are all things that baffled me, baffled me, baffled me. And I didn't know what else to do with them but continue to meditate. I went back to the source. I went back to my daily meditations, asking questions, and started doing my journaling, which I will address to you in the future. So here I was trying to understand what it is to have a subconscious lifetime revealed to me into my conscious mind. And once I began to understand that I had these other lives, it just totally destroyed the ego structure that I had in this lifetime. Because if I've had other lifetimes, naturally and most precisely, these things that were happening to me were taking me to a greater understanding of my whole self. So now, as I've uncovered this piece to look at, it was very important for me because now I had a new piece of information which I could use. So let's just think about that for a moment. Think about this. I've given you a concept that blew my mind in 1968. And hopefully it blows your mind right now to think that maybe perhaps you also have lived other lifetimes and that everything that you know or ever have known is stored in your subconscious and you're only 1/10 aware. You have the life plan that you're living right now, and all the other life plans that you've had are living in your subconscious. All the talents, all the abilities, all the things that you accrued are living memories in your subconscious. When you stop and think about it that way, and you realize there's a lot of things in the subconscious that you aren't aware of. Well, as you begin to meditate, and this is what I found out, because I'll tell you, I was baffled. I was shocked, because in my life as Jane Elizabeth Fenton Hart, I never ever thought of reincarnation at all. So all of a sudden I woke up to a new concept that was foreign to my thinking, foreign to my beingness, foreign from what my parents taught me and what my minister taught me. I was way up in the stratosphere somewhere, and however, I knew what I knew that I knew it. And once I started to think about this more seriously, it started to make sense. Why do good things happen to bad people, and why do bad things happen to good people? And why is there such interesting combinations? Why did so-and-so get the prize when there's other people that were just as talented? What is the balance of the universe? Which of course took me to karma, which is another subject I have covered in the Spiritual Power Tool book. But right now I'm going to stick to this 1/10 conscious and 9/10 subconscious, because everything I'm going to build from this point on embraces the understanding that there's a subconscious in each and every person that ever has evolved on planet Earth that is encased in the subconscious that we're only 1/10 conscious of. But now that we are learning to meditate, we're beginning to tap the universal knowledge, which is part of the subconscious. Yes, the universal knowledge is right there, available to us whenever we get to the point where we want to understand more about our real self, our true self. Now, I've talked to you about being a soul. You're a soul evolving. So naturally, you've had other lifetimes because the soul evolves through many, many forms to eventually come to that place where it identifies itself as God in incarnation. And I'm going to talk to you more about that as time goes on. But I do want to really focus today on the subconscious. And our subconscious runs our conscious mind much more than we have any realization of. Our likes and dislikes are directly connected with other lifetimes. Other people that are in our life right now, the ones that are most close to you, your children, perhaps your work situation, your neighborhood, whatever, have been with you before. And they're part of your nucleus, your group. And they're there for the purpose to help you wake up to your real self. And that is what I began to understand as my subconscious unfolded into my conscious mind. Then what happened here is I became 2/10 conscious instead of 1/10 conscious. I became more and more conscious. More and more conscious. And as the veils were lifted, the understandings came, and I began to discover my true self in the midst of all of this. My true self, my real self, my capital A self, the best possibility self that possibly can be. The A game. My real game. The game that I came into this lifetime to discover, the trueness of myself. And it was a game, believe me, that I had to uncover. It was a journey. And you have the capacity now to become more consciously aware of your true identity, the true self that you are. Only when it's time for you to see your past lives will you see them. Because it's really, really a difficult purpose in your evolution to show you those things when you haven't been prepared in the right way for them. So the commitment you make to your spiritual self by meditating every day, twice a day, being more committed to your spiritual self than you are your personality self, then the ball begins to roll. Whew. It begins to roll, and your soul is saying, I'm ready. I want to know. Wow, there's all that stuff hidden from me? How can I make a wise decision if I don't know how I'm making a decision because I'm making it from some past life that I had and I didn't get to do it, so this lifetime I've got an opportunity to do it? Wonderful. Then I better take my abilities and honor them and work them the best way possible instead of just fluffing them off. I've worked hard to get here. I've worked hard to meditate. And if this is the first time I've ever meditated in my whole many incarnations, that's an important step for your soul. And if you've meditated in other incarnations and tried to still your mind, was a dedicated priest or a dedicated nun or a dedicated Buddhist or whatever, it's brought you to this point of your evolution where you're ready to open that big door, which is self-realization, realizing the real self that you are. So I want to leave you today with the thought that you are 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious. And there's a veil that is between the conscious and the subconscious. And as that veil is lifted, you become more conscious, more aware, more able to deal with the life you're living right now because you have greater understanding of it. So, continue your meditations. Continue tapping into that God computer that I talked about a couple weeks ago, and know that you are connected to your higher power. Let that higher power help you to unveil your real self. You want to unveil the real part of you, not the fictitious part. You want your real self to take charge of your life. The one that's always been behind all the little eyes you've ever been in any incarnation. Okay? I'm going to talk more about that as we move on to next week. But right now, I want to leave you with the spiritual power tool, the 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious, and of course it's sitting in your book, so just go to that chapter and open it up, and I go into more detail, but I wanted to share with you how this concept came about with me, because I was absolutely the baffled student getting this piece of information, and it took me weeks and months to figure out what I've told you in the last 20 minutes. It took me long time to get that full understanding that I just passed on to you in 20 minutes. So meditate on it. Ask for more understanding on it, and you will be getting it. But I wanted to give you information about your soul's journey. And without this piece of information, you will not be able to uncover your whole self until the veil is lifted and you begin to understand that there's more to you than this 1/10 consciousness that you're in right now. So I say, good luck. I'm excited to be a part of your journey, and I will continue to give you little pieces of information about how these tools came about and why I am so happy to be able to give these tools to you. They didn't just come up from nowhere. They came up from a lot of meditation, a lot of looking within and struggling over how to understand some of this. So go to the Spiritual Power Tool book, look up 1/10 conscious, 9/10 subconscious. And it's only like 2 pages long. I made it very simple, very direct, but you can spend the rest of your life understanding that subconscious and what it has to offer you in the conscious mind. Bye-bye for now.
When I first became aware that I had more than one lifetime, I was shocked. I didn't want to totally dismiss it, but was reluctant to embrace the idea. Then to learn that I was only 1/10 conscious was another breakthrough thought that blew my mind. On top of the fact that my subconscious was literally running my life, it was a lot to take in. However, I began to have a heightened awareness when I would meet someone and they would feel so familiar, like I had known them before. We call that on the third dimension deja vu. At times I realized that my response to a particular situation was not appropriate. It was way out of line, like anger. Those became my red flags, alerting me to the fact that my subconscious was running my life. I took Jane's advice, and during my daily meditation time, I began to experience an understanding of these spiritual principles. Little by little, the veil was lifted, and I began a journey of purifying my subconscious. First, I was 1/10 conscious, and then I became 2/10 conscious, etc. And this didn't happen overnight. It took years of daily meditation, journaling, and observing to move myself into self realization. And again, when I say that this was not easy and it takes a while, I want you to truly know from my heart that that is absolutely true. This takes time and patience and a heartfelt desire to move beyond who we are. And at this time, I want to invite you to join us on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for our Support for Your Journey gathering. This is a group of like minded souls that get together every Thursday, and we would love for you to be with us. Please note that additional information is noted in the chat area below. And we are grateful to you for your gifts to the center, which allow us to continue this work serving all souls. The information for donations is also listed in the chat area. Let us take a few minutes at this time to meditate together. Please close your eyes and let the chair support you. Be in the moment. We are moving into the silence. We are in the flow. Of experiencing and understanding our next spiritual step. The veil is being lifted as we move into the expansion of our consciousness into the light. Be in this moment. The light of the superconscious is moving in and through you. Expanding your consciousness. Opening your heart. To the desire of becoming your infinite self. There's only this moment. And we are in the infinite energy and love of the universal consciousness. And as we move from this time together, we are at peace. And we open our eyes in gratitude for having spent this time together. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye now.